Hello, welcome to September 27th, 2022. I'm Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation video. This is something that I do each and every morning to remember my life objectives and principles, and to see how I did applying those to the opportunities and challenges yesterday, and to plan for today. All right, first, last night and yesterday. A pretty good night of sleep. I was indeed up just a few times, tossing and turning, but the alarm woke me up, which is always a good thing. Hate it when I'm awake and glaring out the window. Glaring. Feels that way sometimes, because I can lay in the bed and I can see out the window and I can see the stars above the desert mountains and the lake. It's amazing when we want to leave this place. It's such a lovely setting. But I guess it just goes to show that settings are just that. They're settings. The actual endeavor of the life is happening. Well, it's really happening in here, isn't it? Because the setting, the peaceful that it does, it doesn't help me to sleep necessarily. Well, I'm sure it would be worse if it was loud and noisy and bright with lights. Although I have slept fine in such environments when my mind was more at ease at different times of my life. Various stresses and anxieties, no less, rail upon me now. Rail. Such a dramatic word. It feels that way, though. As trivial as they might be compared to somebody who's wrestling with or some real problems. I mean, there's problems out there's horror show level stuff, which I'll get to, that people are dealing with, including probably some of my neighbors. Tonight, maybe just now, it's not even dawn. It's only it's like 4:20 a.m. right now. There's probably someone on the street laying there awake, dealing with horror right now as I speak. And I'm sitting here and fussing and fuming about whether a deliverable will be met for my project. Perspective. But for either of us at the moment, right? Me without a horror show level challenge and them with one feels sometimes like railing. It's relative. It is relative. Okay, but now I seem to be rambling just a little bit. So let me get myself back on course. Slept all right last night. I should be glad for last night. Yesterday was a really tough day. Boy, I really do earn my money these days. I just squeeze out all kinds of stuff out of my energy for the day. Yesterday was that way. Today will, well, it seems like every day turns out that way, even if it doesn't. My meetings are manageable today. We'll see how they actually go. Anyway, I am really rambling today. Okay, let's do the good life. Let me just stop. Let me summarize yesterday better. Yesterday was a good, solid day of work, hard work, without a lot of time for extraneous things. Plus, I had some very interesting discussions with other human beings about ideas and challenges and next steps in life. I could say that I really gained some ground in understanding things like what are the consequences of the seeking after the high level risks in life only without attending to the deep level risk. I'll get to that when I talk about my principle, the risk of avoiding risk. I'm realizing now that doing that, focusing on the high level risk, which are education, career, home, family, and security, focusing on that, in a way, it's like standing too long on the sand at the beach. When you got the water and the waves come up around your feet and the waves go back. Every time they go back, they kind of pull sand out from under our feet and we slip down a little bit. I expect most of you, if there's anybody out there watching this, have experienced that. And then the next wave comes up, it comes back, and then you slip down a little bit more and you're slowly burying yourself in the sand. I'm starting to see that that's what happens when we stay in one place for very long. Our feet begin to dig in, maybe even in a sort of way of laying down roots. We begin to get sustenance of the ground that we're in. We gain connections and reliance, and we become familiar with the circumstances, the vista that we see, the memory of our children running up and down on the sand around us, splashing in the water just over there. And just behind, that's where we had the picnic basket, where we sat together and watched the kids play and ate lunch together and enjoyed the coffee as the sun went down. It's not a bad thing, but it is a thing of becoming kind of, melded into the landscape of whatever choices we have made and whatever immovability we brought upon ourselves by our resolution to stay put. The consequence of that may be to that when the day comes that we want to go someplace else, we may not be able to extricate our feet from the sand. And even if we can get our feet out, we may not be able to, we may not want to leave. For the memories are here, the past experiences are here. Our footprints are just over there. The picnic basket and blanket are still up there, blown a little bit in the sand, but they're all up there. This is the beach. This is the spot. This is where it all happened. How could I ever leave this behind? For what? For something new, something unknown, something dangerous? And so I'll contrive some reasons. If there's this, then there's that could stand in the way. Well, what if this happens? And another thing. What about them? They need us. And this is the way it's always been. Let's just defer this for another year. And before long, there's not enough time. There's not enough energy. We're a little too weak and fragile. The die is set. The mold has been made. We set our imprint upon the world. And then we go and leave behind a memory and a kind of a swirling remembrance around the place in the sand where our feet had once been buried, and a few more waves and it'll all be smooth and gone again. Flat, like we'd never been there. And our kids will remember for a while that that's where we stood. And this is where they played. And that's where the picnic basket was before. And where we all had our lunch. And then they're gone too. And then the basket, the blanket are either removed by someone or blown away. And another family takes a spot on that beach. And they have a blanket. And they brought lunch. And there's kids. And they're playing just over there. Be careful. Watch it in the water there. And him and her are on the sand right over here. They brought some chairs. And they have their lunch. And they'll find a nice place to put the chairs, and maybe they'll build a little fire with sticks, not bonfire, but a campfire with sticks in the evening when the wind blows. And they'll have hot chocolate from a thermos for the sweaters. Don't forget to put your sweater on. The wind is getting cold. And there's a spot in the sand where maybe the dad went, and the kids were playing, keeping an eye on them as the kids were splashing about. And he noticed his feet sinking in slowly with the waves. It felt good, the sand between the toes. That's a life. It's a fine life. A very fine life indeed. The Good Life Creed. 7 objectives, 32 principles, as follows. 1. First objective is to be always ready to die, to have our affairs and our relationships and our life's work in a stable, ready state to leave behind as we go. Bank accounts with some money in them, if possible. Our people know how to get to that money without us. These are very practical things, like making the bank accounts joint accounts with our spouse. Giving them the bank card, making sure they have a bank card as well, and the PIN code, etc., right? Connections with our others, making sure that our relationships are in sound state, not letting the sun go down, or not letting our head go under the pillow. With unfinished business with people. Unfinished business being the business of building bridges and forming reconciliation to the best of our ability. And then finally, whatever life's work we leave behind. I think I'm good on all fronts. I think I'm ready to go. Not that I want to, but I'm ready. 2, to make good and effective use of my time, to endeavor to extract out something worthwhile of every day. For me, at this point in my life, at 58, it's that goodness is a hard day's work, providing good value for the community that I serve as a public servant, as an employee of the government, and also to endeavor to be, of course, a good husband, father, brother, son, friend, co-worker, and to share the message of the good life through my book, Going Alone, and through these daily videos. 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. That's what I'm doing right now, and working on the Good Life Creed, thinking about them and improving them. 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions, to become a man who reacts well to challenges of life, who doesn't fly off the handle or get unduly upset. And I've become that person. It's really hard to fluster me anymore. It happens. I get caught doing it by not just family members, by coworkers, but for the most part, it's pretty rare. And it's never very extreme. It's mostly just me, in an anxious state of unease until someone calls it out and says, "Hey, what are you up to there, Kurt? Getting a little upset there?" Next is to cultivate, to perform good actions, just to do good things for the day. More coffee. And then the last one is to just do one thing at a time, and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully. Those are my 7 objectives. My 32 principles are to pet the dog. No. To make a dog happy. This fits in there somewhere. Good use of time is what that is. First principle is the principle of war. I always want to be examining and trying to take apart the things that I already believe and that I think are true. Reconsider them as often as possible. And I want to do the same thing with anything that's proposed to me as true by others. Anything that's important, at least, not mundane claims I'm not going to challenge. 2 is there's the principle of reason and the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, doubt, and humiliation. To be a reasonable man, I need to be truthful with myself. I need to be looking at things from as many sides as possible. And a skeptic, a fierce skeptic, particularly where I am inclined by other interests in my life to adopt something as true. I need to really be skeptical there. For example, anything that might, if I can believe it, might relieve me of any unreasonable, of any reasonable unease. It's not good to use unreasonable conclusions to satisfy reasonable questions. Unsatisfactory answers to reasonable questions. Unsatisfactory answers to slowly and deliberately. Unsatisfactory answers to reasonable questions. That's the thing to avoid. And that's what I do by virtue of this principle of reason. And then humiliation is a sub-principle where I welcome the chance to be humiliated, to feel humiliated when someone or some circumstance or some bit of information uncovers error on my part. To be grateful for the fact to be humiliated in my error. 3, the homunculus. I don't think we have a soul, none of us do, but we do have a little consciousness in our heads, and that consciousness will be with us as long as we're alive, and then we'll wink out and disappear forever once we're dead. I call that the homunculus, which is an old word referring to an inner man or woman. 4, the Anchorhold. I picture the homunculus like a man or woman trapped on a little rock sticking out of the sea, deep out way in the ocean. Actually, it's a large seamount, maybe the size of Everest, under the sea, that just pokes out at the top. And they're standing on the top there. The waves are splashing. It's wet rock, slippery. The tide rises and falls, and the wind blows, and the sun burns, and the rain pelts. And all the while, we try to survive. It's an uphill battle. We're going to lose, we're going to die, we're going to slip and fall into the water one day, all of us will. It's an inevitable thing. But in the meantime, we strive to do our best to stand on that rock alone, always alone. Each of us on our own rock, somewhere on that sea, poking out. So imagine a vast sea with rocks sticking out and people standing on them, waving at one another. Emily made a picture of that for me. I wonder if I can find it. It's in the book. My daughter illustrated the book for me. And she made a picture of a man standing on that rock. Here it is. People on their rocks. That's exactly it right there. Some of them, like the man in the back, are, to use that word again, railing at the heavens. The one man closer in the back is going to get swept away by that wave. Catastrophic horror show event is about to happen. The one man second from the back is sitting there, maybe sulking, and the one up front is seated. I asked Emily to draw that, kind of seated in a kind of a Buddhist pose, right, with the sutra hands, kind of just meditatively living that life on the rock. That's the Anchorhold. Boy, she did a good job of that, didn't she? My daughter. Very appreciative and proud of her effort. Next is the home of good and evil. I think this is 5. Good and evil do not reside in the universe. They reside within us, in our heads. They're just opinions that we have, which is tricky because that means we're responsible. Responsible not only for thinking hard about what constitutes good and evil, right and wrong, and coming up with systems by which we can work together to abide those and perpetrate them, like perpetrating justice. I think that's what it is. That is what we do. But also the fact that no one's going to hold us accountable, just one another. The sub-principles of that, well, there is no sub-principles. I'm getting ahead of myself. Next is the principle of purpose. There are 3 sub-principles here. Biology, virtue, and mission. Biology is the idea, I use that word to describe the seeming mandate within us to reproduce, to grow to maturity, find a mate, have sex, what's the word? Make babies, and then raise them to maturity and die and get the hell out of the way. 2 is virtue. This is my own purpose. I make up the biology one. That seems to be one that's innate within all of us. The virtue one is the one that I think is kind of innate for us. We kind of have to seek after working together as social creatures, otherwise we wouldn't succeed as well as we do. So, but for me, I define it very succinctly as working to improve the well-being of creatures, particularly thinking creatures. This includes plants too. 3 is, for me, my purpose, this is my personal purpose, is to share the story, the message of the Good Life Creed via my book, Going Alone, which I need to do a better job of. I don't promote it very well. I don't even try. I need to find a way to do that. Yeah. I need to work on that purpose. Next, the next principle that is the atomic principle. When I'm out in the desert and I do this, which has been a long time since I've done that, I would usually pick up a handful of sand and let the sand flow from my fingers and say, like sands through the hourglass, so are the constituent parts of each of us, compounds, molecules, and atoms. Each of us held together by our animating, life force, which will, as soon as we're dead, begin to deconstruct, decompose, and fall to pieces. And within a very short period of time, even our bones will be rendered to dust and gone forever. So too everything around us, to a greater or lesser degree. The gold on my finger will probably not change a lot, other than being maybe melted down and reformed into something else. But you get the idea. Okay, next is the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature, and it's good to recognize what that is. Today's a Tuesday. I think I've done this before. The nature of a Tuesday is to follow a Monday and to be before a Wednesday and to be a hell of a day. Like that. I use the principle of nature all the time when I'm at work. I did it yesterday. I was in a meeting with somebody, and they were talking in a particular way, and I said, Kurt, this is just their nature. That's the way they do things. I had the opportunity to use it as well with a couple of meetings yesterday where I was faced with the nature of team members and of groups and of organizations. That's all I'll say. Okay, then next is maturity. No, I always do that. I always skip the pirate ride. The next principle is the pirate ride. I don't think free will is real. I don't think it's a thing. I think it's something we made up to kind of give ourselves a sense of agency, of driving agency. I don't think it's there. I think we are decision engines that are animated by our biological engine, and we seem to make decisions, but what we're really doing is we're following the path, a sort of path of least resistance in some way. The path, and it's a downhill path formed by, in a way, by reason and experience, that we seek to find our way towards an ocean of well-being. I like that. I'm just full of interesting little phrases this morning. An ocean of well-being. And we twist to the left and we twist to the right, not by whimsy, although there perhaps is a bit of that. Still, even that is driven by precedence and consequence, seeming consequence. That is the impetus of our. Hold on, I just have to capture that. It's a little interesting little phrase. The ocean of well-being. If I don't capture that, I'll lose that. So we flow through life left and right, making choices here, there. Usually it comes down to one or two, less than a handful of things. Just like a river, going down the stream tends to angle to the left or the right, or what would it be? Tend to the left or the right. us too, our lives seem more convoluted and more circuitous than that. Yet, nevertheless, we are flowing towards an objective, which that objective being the survival of ourselves and our families and namely our kids. And we do this through the development and the support of homes and neighborhoods and communities, and the raising of children and the creating of safe homes and secure ways of doing things, and nutrition, and traditions, and groups. All of this towards, like I said, that ocean of well-being that we're all flowing towards. And everything has everything to say about that. Thus, I think we're deprived of free will. I don't think we're even capable of it. Just as water is not capable of not proceeding down the slope of gravity. Once liberated from the cloud in which it was carried as vapor, it then proceeds. The water drops can proceed and come together, and then form into bodies that move and flow and maybe stay stable for a long while when they get struck into a lake, etc. You get the whole imagery. I don't need to go on and on about that, but that's us. That's us. Instead of sands of the hourglass, so are the days of our lives, like water flowing down a stream towards an ocean of well-being. This little bit's kind of rougher on the edges, but I think it gets the point. Next is maturity, and the principles of wisdom, fortitude, and integrity. We are mature when we wisely remember our past successes and failures and have the fortitude to do better, and when our decisions are we have the integrity of our decisions matching our values. And then after maturity comes what does come next? Is it it seems too soon for the social principle. It is the social principle. We need each other. We're social creatures. It's good to come together, to find someone to spend our lives with, work out, create that relationship founded on core values. It doesn't matter if you like the same things or like doing the same things. In fact, that's incidental to success as a marriage. What is key and integral to success in marriage is having a like and common value set. And I'm not talking about political values. I'm talking about the core essence, beliefs about what constitutes right or wrong. That's the best foundation to establish a long-term relationship. The rest is incidental and can be worked through, but you can't overcome core differences and core beliefs. Although in its root sense, in most cases, most in our same culture tend to have, and most in the same species, that seems to have the same core beliefs. Maybe it's more like communication and willing to suffer through the difficulty of working our way through. Maybe it's having a motivation towards something bigger than ourselves. There's a lot to unpack in this principle. And there's three sub-principles: diplomacy, justice, and conspiracy. Working together, using diplomacy to arrive at common values, and then seeking after justice, the application of those values, and then conspiracy, working together to make these things happen. Conspiracy in a positive sense. Then comes the principle called public speaking, which has four sub-principles. These are best words, prudence, eloquence, rumor and gossip. Did I get it right? Best words, eloquence, prudence. Yeah, I got it. So best words is choosing the right words. Public speaking. That includes writing. Composing our sentences and our paragraphs in spoken or written in such a way as to communicate clearly what we want to say. Using the best words for it, having a rich and deep vocabulary, and then pulling out just the right words, not to be fancy, but to be apt and appropriate for what we want to say. Contributing to eloquence, which is the ability to be on point, to be communicating clearly and beautifully in such a way as to capture and sustain and maintain attention. And then using, and then not trading in rumor or gossip, which are dirty, nasty things. The next one is, see if I can do it without looking after public. It's on the next page. Public speaking is temperance. Yeah, I know that's the next one. Temperance, which includes 5 principles. Temperance, life will not go well. The horror show, that which must be borne, and the Feast of Offal. Temperance is key because our ability, it suggests our ability to control ourselves, namely our consumption of what we do, how much whatever we're exercising our action upon, our motive energies upon, whether that is eating or working or playing or communicating, anything, being able to hold ourselves, withhold our speech, withhold our excess action, withhold our judgment even, whatever the case is. Temperance, self-control, that's key to everything. The next one is life will not go well. A reminder, a stoic reminder that things will happen that are outside of our control, and that we were never born to be to live the world or the life of our expectations. Our expectations tend to paint a more technicolor picture of the world than it really is. The world tends to be more muted in colors. I'm full of all kinds of little things today. That's not a very good way to describe it. But what I mean is, if you imagine the world being this bright thing, it tends to be more subdued by the fact that things don't always go well. Things happen. The world doesn't match our expectations. That is the way it is. And who are we to think otherwise? That we are somehow exempt from living in such a world. The next principle is the horror show. Sometimes things don't go well to the level of horror. You get a lump in, you're feeling a little pain in your side. You go see the doctor. It turns out it's not just a benign little thing or something like that, but it's a stage 4 cancerous tumor that's gone all over your body. You're going to be dead in 6 months. Horror. You don't have any smoke alarms in your house, and the house catches fire and burns down. 2 members of your family are burned and killed in the fire. Horror. You could see I could begin to relate things. And this stuff is happening every day. A child gets run over and killed. Sometimes I pull the same things out of my hat because it's really hard for me to do this. It really upsets me. It pisses me off when I do this, and I'm not very good at it. Hopefully in a couple of years, I'll be so good at it, at the horror show, at this part of the Good Life meditation, that I'll cause some of you to, if you watch these, to turn it off. Say, screw you, Kurt. Baby, fuck you, Kurt. I can't take it. Why are you going there, Kurt? You're a sadist for bringing these things up. I do. It's not a sadistical bent. It's a bend towards looking around the corner at what really can and what really will happen. The tricky part is then to not see that and to be collapsed into, like collapsing away form into a particular state of melancholy, and because it could do that, right? I mean, this really has an adverse effect on me. Every time I perform this exercise, I'm kind of shaken, and maybe that's why I can't do it very well, because I'm afraid that shook state will stick. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to be like Stilbo the Stoic, to be able to witness the destruction of my city and my home and my business and the death of my family, and to be able to walk out from the smoking, fiery ruins with all my goods. Yeah. The next one, let's get past that. Move aside, nothing to see here. Turn the eyes away from the horror show is that which must be borne, carried. And what we have to carry is the fact of the life will not go well in the goddamn horror show. Then comes the Feast of Offal, the waste and byproduct of our intemperate living. What happens when we get it? We just can't have enough. And we say, God damn, gosh dang. And we rail at the world, to use that word third time. When we do that, when we're not careful, we upset others. It hurts our family to see us do that. So my point is to not do that in front of others. Find other ways to dissipate the upset, the hurt, the pain. And there are other ways to do that, including not doing it at all, just letting it, just internalizing it and letting it go, using stoic apathy to disconnect from the things that are outside of our control. It is possible to do, such that the poison doesn't sink in. The viper strikes, the teeth go through, if the poison doesn't come. That can be done. It's tough though. Okay, I think I covered them all 5. Moving on then to, is it distraction? I think distraction is next. Let me check. No, yes, that's it. Twofer, distraction followed by agency and the great indifference. We spend our days distracting ourselves with our work and our hobbies and our family and our church and our sports and our ideas of God and forever. And we do that so that we don't have to see the apparent emptiness of the universe, which I label as the great indifference. I don't want to do that. I'd rather see the great indifference for what it isn't, and then try to build a life system around that evident fact. It's a harder road to go, I think, but it's also more liberating in a way, because that at least such a worldview isn't built on false pretenses. It's not built on wishful thinking. It's built on, and it could be wrong. Maybe there is a God, but at least it's built on the fact that it doesn't seem like there's a God, and if that God is hiding, then that's not our fault. So yeah, I think it's more honest. Next comes the best seat in the house, to be okay with who I am, where I am, and what I'm doing. Right here, right now, and right who I am. All the while striving for better. After that comes the Restless Man. Here's a couple, I think it's 3 or 4 to go together. The Restless Man, the Uphill Climb, the Path of Wildness. It's 3. And then, yeah, that's it. Maybe I could tie on the next one, the risk of avoiding risk. But let's stick with that. The Restless Man. A lot of us are restless. We want something out of life. And I think that's again, a biological imperative to help us to reach out beyond our borders. And this is why the young are particularly restless, because it's their health and vivacity that will help them to push past the limits to find new territory. Literally, back in the old hunter-gatherer day, troop of young teenage boys, young 20s, young men saying, today we're not going to hunt in the usual spot. We're going to go over the mountain and see what's over there. Finding new game, new water sources, and people to trade with, etc. Resources to plunder, whatever the case may be. That fact of what causes our species to expand is kind of innate within us, particularly young men, to want to push out, to have adventures in life. And there's something to be said for doing that at a young age when you have that want. If you don't do it, it tends to haunt us for all of our lives. And it gets difficult, and then impossible to do at a later age. You reach a point, and like I said earlier, your feet are so dug into the sand, you're so familiar with everything around you, the beach blanket, the place where the kids played, etc., that you can never leave. And you die you might die well, but you also die having left a longing that you never attempted to do anything about. And that hurts, possibly, but in the end, who gives a damn? Because you're dead and you don't know otherwise. But anyway, while you're still alive, if you're a restless man, then I recommend stepping upon the path of wildness. It's a way to move forward and into and through one life chapter into another one. Best to do it when you're young, typically after your college years are done. Although going to college alone is a step onto the path of wildness. And give yourself from 25 to 30 as your own years, 5 years all to yourself, and then come back and start your career. And then pepper your life with Path of Wildness endeavors, if you can. The next one, the third in that Twofer, is the Great Life Adventure. It's what results of stepping onto the Path of Wildness. You wind up with a Great Life Adventure that can be either big or medium or small. Yeah, you can have a Great Life Adventure over a weekend. You can have also a Great Life Adventure over a course of an entire season of life, whatever the case may be. If you do it, it pays dividends all your life. If you don't, you'll probably become maybe a little dull, and you'll become maybe someone who has a aching yearning, scratch that you can't itch late in life. Maybe a little gardening, maybe a little RVing, maybe a little red sports car. Won't some of these do it? I'll keep trying. That's the risk, which is the next principle, the risk of avoiding risk. There's 5 surface level risks of life. These are education, career, home, family, and security, saving for our old age. It's easy to attend to those. They're hard, but it's easy because all of society, including our families, are geared towards that. The tricky one is the deep risk, the risk of stepping upon the path of wildness and having a great life adventure. Doing that is hard, scary. People are going to hold you back. They're going to grab onto your sleeves and say, well, where are you going? What are you talking about? That's scary. That's dangerous. Nobody does that. Look, we got a beach. We got a blanket. We got the kids will play right over here. Just stay here. Grandpa's right over there. See, he's buried up to his thighs. And here's Dad right here. He's buried up to his knees. There's a spot you can stand right over there. You too can join it. And say, no, I think I'm gonna go over the sand dunes and see what's up there. Or around the bend in the corner and the tides though. I think I can shimmy around the rocks to the other side. No, it's dangerous, don't do that. That's what typically happens. If you wonder what's around that corner, you better go find out. They may be right, you may never come back. You may die, you may be the tide will come up and block you out and sweep you into the sea. That's a good end, by the way. There's no shame in dying young on a great life adventure. It's quite fine. It used to be I couldn't say that. I would say something more cautionary. But now death is eternal and inevitable. What's it going to make? What difference does it make if it's a few years? Or maybe a few dozen years. Now or later, it doesn't matter in the long run. What matters is how we engage in our life throughout our life. Now that program changes a little bit once we make the commitment to have a family and particularly to raise children into the world. Then we have some obligation to stick around and see things through and to exercise some restraint. That's why I recommend doing this, taking these awful risks at a young age, and when we're single, young, broke, have nothing to lose, dumb, foolhardy, and able to maybe recover from whatever the consequences are of the efforts that we made, the risks that we take. Well, the Great Life Adventure is a very worthwhile thing if you are a man or woman who feels that restlessness and wants to assuage the deep level risk before moving into the attendance to the surface level risks of life. It's a program. Next comes, what is next? Sin and damnation. There are 7 sins in my worldview: falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, dogma, authority, and gossip. I should add an 8th one, which is rumor and gossip. Yeah, I should. Did I add that already in here? This is how I do. This is how I maintain the book, right? I think I added it in here. I did. I need to color it so that I remember to do that. There we go. Colored yellow. So make that edit. Okay. Engaging in any of these sins, and we wind up damned, not in any afterlife, but in the here and now. So, being untrue, being a damned liar, believing things that are untrue, being a damned gullible fool, and partaking in rumor and gossip, doing awful use of our time, trading, distracting, it's just all heat and no light. It's not good stuff, and it soils the world. It sets up ideas in people's heads that may not be true, and it's disparaging of the character of others. And it's maybe it's true, maybe it is true. Then talk to them about it. Don't be spreading that to others, because stories tend to change, and so it may be true to you, may not be changed in the next step down the line. Okay, the next one is, the next principle, that is complete oblivion. After we're dead, excuse me, with a frog in my throat, we won't be around, or we're gone forever. So it seems. There's no reason to think that we have any soul, and there's any afterlife, or that there is any God, or heaven, or hell, or any final justice. So when we're dead, we won't see our loved ones again, we won't have a chance to reconcile, and we won't have a chance to see wrongs made right, and the wrongdoers punished. So no final reunion, no final reconciliation, no final justice, just complete oblivion. That's an animating, motivating force for me. I can't waste today, because I ain't getting anything like today again. Tomorrow won't be like today. Tomorrow will hopefully be better. Although I know that the entropy is bearing down, and the corrupting fact of my body slowly, and my mind slowly degrading and falling to pieces is true. The dogs are getting restless. I'm going a little long. They know it's almost time for their walk. Okay, so it was complete oblivion, and then what's next? The season of philosophy, which is a time to keeping pen and paper handy, especially if we lived well during our young age, especially if we gave ourselves a couple of great life adventures and we were stepped upon the path of wildness. Be ready. You're probably going to have something to say later in life. So keep a journal and a pen ready to write down whatever the muse says. I'll pull to the side of the road and find a safe place to stop to write down whatever the muse is saying. Because whatever words are coming now, they won't be there a little later. They won't be there minutes from now. If you wait until you get to where you're going, you won't remember. It'll be gone. You'll have lost it forever. It's rare that, like lightning, the muse rarely strikes in the same way twice. Okay, the great season of philosophy, then the bullseye aim. Just a reminder that throughout the day I'm going to be striving to do something, and that's how I'm going to do it. But it really turns out this way. That's how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to release the throwing axe when my backward swing, and it wound up over there. That's life. Remind myself that's going to happen today. It's going to happen at work today, repeatedly, all throughout the day. The bullseye. It's a little bit related to the fact that life will not go well. In fact, it's part and parcel of it. But it's simply a more of a reminder as I wind up for the swing that I'm going to sometimes strike out or get a foul ball, spoken from the guy that doesn't play baseball. Okay, like a bullseye aim now, the uphill climb, just a suggestion to be attentive to every day, lifting this whole carcass up a higher step. Next tomorrow, up a higher step. Whereas when I was young, I could take 2 at a time. Now it's 1 at a time. Soon it won't be just barely crawling, but every day a little higher than yesterday. So that when I turn around, I witness a new vista, unseen from before. After that comes arena and utility. Life is an arena for the development of good objectives and principles which we can use to live well. Then, second to last is nothing is enough. Suggestion to do well in life with less stuff. I'm gonna do it tough this time. This time, as we get ready to move, I'm gonna get rid of the crap in my life deep and hard. A lot of it's gonna go. I need to get myself down as close as I can to the bare necessities, photographs and memories, objectives and principles, and stoic resolve. Lastly, my last principle is the principle of fun. Reminder to try to have fun today. Also to have some fun planning for the future and to enjoy the retrospect of the good times from yesterday. We did it. We went through the Good Life Creed today. This is my Good Life meditation brought to a conclusion. But one more thing to do. I have to plan for the coming day. So after this is done, which is almost done, I'll sign off. I'll go over, I'll read my Bible, which I do every day after my Good Life meditation. Then I'll feed the dogs, walk the dogs, come upstairs, get dressed, and start my working day, gosh darn it. And it's going to be a good one. It's not going to be a perfect one. I'm going to miss the mark repeatedly. I'm going to strive towards good communication, but sometimes I'll blow it. I'm going to make it an uphill climb. I'm going to finish the day exhausted, worn, beat, but I'm also going to reflect on the good times that I had, plan for tomorrow, a better day tomorrow. Okay, I've set myself up for optimism, and but all the while still reflecting on all the horrible things that can happen today, which could really be bad. But I think I've had enough of that. Let's do the day. Be safe, but not too safe.